You're listening to Black Parents Aging, where we help you navigate caring for aging loved ones. Every Wednesday, we'll discuss how to help your parents successfully navigate this new season of life. We are going to talk about legal, health, technology, and finances. Here's your host attorneys, Olivia Smith and Nicola Robinson.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Black Parents Aging. It's Olivia Smith here with you today, and I am flying solo today. But today we're talking about a very important topic that you may not have given a lot of thought about, and that is guardianships and conservatorships. Now, these terms may be vaguely familiar to you if you've ever had to sign a permission slip for a child as their guardian. And chances are you may have heard about Britney Spears needing a conservator, which was really controversial and a source of much debate. We often in our office get calls from people who have family members who have mental health issues and they are not doing a good job of making decisions for themselves, or they have a parent that has dementia and they're not making the best decisions for themselves, or they're not paying bills or hiding things and not knowing where they left them. And so oftentimes we get people that call our office and want to know, what can I do in these situations? Because the person may not have done any estate planning. So they may not have any documents that appoint an agent. And so these are situations that would be perfect for having to file for a guardianship or a conservatorship. And so before I went further into Britney Spears, I wanted to give you some practical understanding of when you might need to file a conservatorship or guardianship. So let me flash back to Britney Spears now. So her conservatorship is one that really made headlines because, and I think it may be her dad became the conservator over her finances because the court deemed that she was not doing a good job or could not take care of her finances herself or be responsible. But there's really several kind of Hollywood stars that wind up having conservatorships for all sorts of reasons. So Amanda Bynes, who is a Nickelodeon star, Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, Joni Mitchell, who was singer, songwriter, DJ Casey Kasem, and then a famous Hollywood actor, Mickey Rooney. They were all under conservatorship. In fact, Mickey Rooney's was reportedly so controlling, he wasn't even allowed to buy food or carry identification. And of course, as I was alluding to earlier, it's not just celebrities that need conservatorships. According to an article published in AARP in October 2018, an estimated 1 million adults are under guardianship in this country. Perhaps 85% of them are over the age of 65. So conservatorships are somewhat common. When we talk about guardianship and conservatorship, different states have different definitions and meanings for these terms. So what we're talking about is what Georgia calls these terms. If you live in another state, you may need to look and see what name your state have for these terms. Guardianships in some states are specifically just for minors, but that's not the case here in Georgia. In Georgia, you can be a guardian or conservator for another adult. So what are some of the scenarios where a guardian or conservator may be necessary? Now, I alluded to a couple at the top, but let me just expound on those. So I talked about someone that has dementia, and usually it's someone that has advancing dementia and they're just no longer able to live on their own or make medical decisions for themselves, but they may be refused to be placed in a nursing home. And so it's, what do you do at that point if you know that there is something that is the best thing for them, but they are refusing to agree? And so at that point, you may need to file in probate court to become that person's guardian so you can act on their behalf and in their best interest. Also, if you become mentally incapacitated, and we always think of people that may have mental health issues, but also, for instance, if you're in a bad car accident and you're hospitalized with a traumatic brain injury, the court could appoint a conservator and a guardian to make decisions and manage the legal and financial aspects of your life for you. And so This is a huge responsibility, and I think the state of Georgia recognizes that. And so they have a handbook for guardians and conservators of adults in Georgia. And so that is a very good resource and tool to help people who have been appointed as a guardianship or a conservator so that you're familiar with your responsibilities, your obligations, your duties, your authority, and your liability. So you are well versed in what you have to do and the responsibilities you have. So when we're talking about guardianships and conservatorships, it's serious. And it's serious because essentially you are taking away someone's legal rights. Oftentimes, that person sometimes take their license get taken, sometimes they're not allowed to vote, and oftentimes it's for the rest of their lives. So it is important that it is taken seriously. And because it's such drastic measures, it's also important to point out that there are alternatives to conservatorships and guardianships. But the alternatives have to be arranged while the individual is competent and is able to spell out what their wishes are, what they want. One way is through a revocable living trust. And through that, you can appoint a trustee to manage financial affairs. When we're talking about finances, you can also do a power of attorney. And so the power of attorney would list an agent that can take care of your financial affairs if you are not competent to do so. And then on the healthcare side, the advanced health directive for healthcare allows you to designate or name someone to act as your agent. It also allows you to give some direction on the kinds of medical treatment that you would want. Now, these documents are all something that an estate planning attorney like us can help you with. And it's really never too early to get these documents drafted. These are often called life documents because they are important and they are effective while you're still alive and just may be incapacitated and not able to make decisions on your own. So, with that being said, let's kick things off talking about guardianships and conservatorships. Now, someone that is under a guardianship or a conservatorship is called a ward. And in Georgia, a guardianship may be created for the person of a ward and a conservatorship for the property of a ward. Guardians generally are responsible for making sure that the ward has adequate medical attention, an acceptable place to live, adequate food. And then a conservatorship is granted control over the financial matters of an incapacitated individual, such as paying their bills, filing their taxes, determining a budget for the ward, taking care of the ward's investments. So, in other words, a guardian generally makes decisions related to the health or physical welfare of the adult, and a conservator generally makes decisions related to the financial welfare of the adult. A guardian is entitled to physical custody of the ward and may establish the ward's place of dwelling, consistent with the terms of any restrictions or directions from the court. Now, putting that in terms that you actually know what we're talking about is basically means a guardian can decide where the ward will live. Now, if you're wondering if someone can be both a conservator and a guardian, in Georgia, the answer is absolutely. So typically, when we're thinking of adults that may need a guardian, the court is going to consider certain people kind of first, and they're going to consider who is going to be the best person for that role. So some of the people they may look at is if the ward has already designated someone in their estate plan, if they have a spouse or an adult child, if they have previously appointed state guardian, if they have someone that is volunteering to do it, that is qualified. And then, if there is a county appointed public official. Conservators are subject to supervision and control by the court. Now, this is a good thing, but sometimes it can be not such a good thing. So conservatorships are public record, which meaning there is no privacy. They are also subject to costs. All these filings and proceedings in court appearances are not free. So everyone gets paid. You can have a situation where several people want to be the guardian or conservator, or you can have a situation where no one wants to. There can be a legal fight, which can have additional costs. And then one area that we definitely need to touch on when we're talking about conservatorship and guardianships is conflict of interest, which is a huge deal because someone has been a guardian for you at one point doesn't mean that you can just apply to be, the guardian at another point. In the handbook Georgia publishes, the state specifically says guardians and conservators owe a duty of undivided loyalty to the ward and must act in the best interest of the ward, which means guardians and conservators should avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest in making decisions about the ward's person or in management of the ward's property. Now, this sounds obvious, but sometimes it can get a little tricky, especially when you're looking at not an actual conflict of interest, but what could be a potential conflict of interest. So let's revisit Britney Spears, who we mentioned in the beginning of the episode when we first introduced the term conservatorship. The center of the controversy has a lot to do with whether or not it's in Britney's true best interest. Many of her fans believe she does not need a conservator. Now, they're fans. Being a fan of hers doesn't necessarily make you qualified to make that decision, but her conservatorship is in California and not in Georgia. So it's a little different, but still the question of the conflict of interest of her dad lingers. He was given $130,000 a year salary for his conservatorship dues. That sounds like a pretty good job to me as well. So he got a salary of $130,000 for acting as her conservator, and he got 1.5% of the revenue of her performances, merchandise linked to her residency in Las Vegas. So that in itself, sometimes that seems like it could be a conflict of interest because he is benefiting off being her conservator. So that can be a little tricky. There's also a movie out on Netflix called I Care a Lot, featuring Rosamund Pike, who plays a woman who makes her living using the legal system to essentially kidnap seniors, place them in a nursing home, and then sell off all their assets for her own profit. Every once in a while, we hear about a true story that is based on a bad apple out there. And that is unfortunately. Now, I've heard of this. I haven't seen this movie. It was on my to-do list, and then I didn't do it, but I heard about the movie. So yes, there's always, in any system, there's always a chance that someone is going to be a bad actor and use the system to do something other than what it was intended to do. So on that note, that's it. That's all we have for today. But I want you to think about guardianship and conservatorship. And really, in my opinion, it should be a reason to really talk with your family members and the aging people in your family. Because if it's an option between them doing their planning now and being able to say, if I'm incapacitated, this is the person that I would want making the decisions on my behalf. If it's a choice between that, if you act early, or we have to go to court because we didn't act, and we have to say all of these really unkind things about this person that I love, and we have to strip all of their rights away, and we have to have the probate court to determine who's going to act on their behalf, and which opens up the chance for conflict and fighting. One way seems a lot easier than the other way. And so, whereas sometimes there is no chance, something happens and the documents aren't in place and that is the only way to resolve it. If you have the opportunity to talk with your aging loved ones, or really just anyone, I think the cheaper, smarter, best option is to do your estate planning and decide for yourself who you would want to have to step into those roles. So I will get off my soapbox about that. I hope this episode was helpful. As always, we love to hear your feedback. We love to hear your comments, your questions. We just love to hear from you. Do you have an experience with guardianships or conservatorships? Have you had to be a guardian or conservator? We would love to do a follow-up with someone who can talk about their experience. As we always say, this is a judgment-free zone here. And so we are here to listen and also to have those tough conversations that we are always talking about. You can always connect with us on our Facebook page, on our Instagram. You can check out our website. And I guess that's it for today. So we look forward to connecting with you soon. Have a great day.
You're listening to Black Parents Aging, where we help you navigate caring for aging loved ones. Every Wednesday, we'll discuss how to help your parents successfully navigate this new season of life. We are going to talk about legal, health, technology, and finances. Here's your host attorneys, Olivia Smith and Nicola Robinson.